For Inside Carolina, I'm Taylor Vippolis, and before we get started today, I want to remind everyone about Johnny T-Shirt. They support Inside Carolina, so we want to support them. And during these times, especially, fans should want to support them as well, as they are a locally family-owned business to Chapel Hill. Whether you're looking for what the athletes are wearing to work out in, trying to fix up that room this offseason you watch the Tar Heels in, or looking to get a Carolina face mask for when you're out and about, Johnny T-Shirt has you covered with any and everything UNC related. They got great customer service. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. All right, joining me today from the Arizona Diamondbacks, former UNC Baseball star, Zac Gallen. Zac, thanks for joining me here today. I've got to start here as a noted Philly South Jersey guy. You're a 76ers fan. Have we seen the last of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid together, or are you still trusting the process?
I'm still trusting the process. And on another note, stop fooling the people on Twitter that you're a Suns fan. You're a Knicks fan. Get off the bandwagon.
Have you considered, with how close you are from Chase Field to where the Suns play, have you considered joining up with the Suns? They got Cam Johnson, they got Devin Booker, they're a young squad. You've been saying trust the process for so long, and you've gotten maybe 10 playoff wins.
Yeah, I mean, okay, first off, you're a Knicks fan. Again, I'm gonna reiterate it. No, I mean the Suns, what they've been doing this year has been sick. I like Booker even when he was in Kentucky. I wish the Sixers would have taken a shot on him then. I mean, granted, he probably wasn't a high prospect, but I did like him then. Cam Johnson actually threw out a first pitch last year at Chase Field that I caught. I don't think you realized that I was a UNC guy, but
No.
yeah, so no, but yeah, I'm not switching. I'm a Sixers fan. But it'll be cool, just hopefully they make something come from what they had going on this year.
Can you take us back to your recruitment process? Because I know you've mentioned before that North Carolina was your dream school. So was it a case of they were just always involved, or it was maybe they came on late? How did that process kind of go about? Because I'm not sure the casual fans kind of know how baseball recruiting works because it's not as much in the spotlight.
Yeah, so I think it's changed since I was going through it. I think they had to modify some of the rules, just with the popularity of travel ball and stuff like that. But back when I was going through it, it was July 1st, your junior summer, so going into your senior year was the first time that college coaches could call you. Usually it would have to be, they would contact your coach and then you would have to call them. So July 1st, I had 3 calls from Boston College, Monmouth, and Old Dominion. So not a lot of calls. I was still very under the radar, but UNC was still my dream school. And I'd known Coach Jackson, who's at Liberty now, and Coach Forbes since I was about 13, because they came and did a camp in New Jersey. So I've known them for a while, and I went and pitched in an event in Georgia, threw well, had some numbers on the radar gun come up that coaches like, and, they all kind of came at the same time, a bunch of big schools, North Carolina included. So when they came involved, I was just kind of not necessarily doing my due diligence to everyone else, but Carolina is where I always wanted to go. So for me, it was just all right, let's just make sure I'm going to go see these other schools, make sure they don't have something that totally blows me out of the water. And, Carolina was where I went.
Now that you're in the MLB, I'm curious of what your response is to this question. Growing up, especially people growing up in our time frame, everybody wanted to be an MLB player growing up. But, a lot of people like myself, we don't see that dream out. You are a rare exception to that case. Do you remember the first time thinking that this was actually a real possibility that you could make it to the majors?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I guess it was just this. I don't know. But as a kid, I was I'm going to play in the big leagues. And there was really granted, there were some times where I was oh, if I don't play in the big leagues, I'd rather work in the front office or do something with baseball. But it was 98% sure that I was I'm going to play in the big leagues. And I don't know if that was just being naive or whatever it was. But I just, there was really never a time where I don't know. I guess I always had this quiet confidence in myself that I would play in the big leagues. So there was never really a moment. But certain things just started to fall into place, and there's not necessarily a checklist that you need to check off that shows that you're ready, but those things started to happen, and then it's all right, well now it's this this could really happen. But yeah, there was never really a moment that I was like, oh, okay, this is it. It was just always like, you have what it takes, and just keep doing what you got to do.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I had that quiet confidence too. And then ninth grade, I batted under 200. My arm in center field was less than Johnny Damon's. And then the next year, I was just a pinch runner. So I was quickly put in my place. But I'm glad you came on this week, because the biggest news from Carolina baseball this month was Coach Fox retiring. What was your relationship with Coach Fox like when you were playing and now that you're in the pros? And what was it like finding out that he would be retiring?
Yeah, my time in Carolina was awesome. Coach was, great to me. I don't know. I don't know if it was like this maturity or whatever it was, but I understood and grasped what he was getting at when you first come in, and it's different for everybody. So I kind of understood that what his thing was like. Listen, if you're out of if you're out of my doghouse, we're gonna be fine. So my whole thing was like, don't be late, be on time, be respectful. Like those were the things that he just wanted to see. So I was like, all right, if I can just do those things, I'm gonna be fine with coach. So our relationship got stronger as the year went on, or years went on. He knew I was a competitor, so there's a lot of times where he had to kind of like pull the reins back and be like, hey, like relax, like whatever. But yeah, he was it was awesome. And then just to see him retire it's very well deserved. I know he's got a couple grandbabies. His family's really close, so you just wanted to spend some time with him. And yeah, he actually came to my debut last year, which was really cool. I know he tries to come to a lot of them, but like some of the time he's like the schedule doesn't work out. So for him to be there, I thought it was an awesome thing. He was on the field, after the game. But yeah, it was super cool.
What can you tell UNC fans about Coach Forbes, who now takes over as the head coach, because he was your pitching coach for 3 years?
Yeah, Forbes is one of the best. He's like one of my favorite guys. I love going back to see Coach Forbes. Anytime I'm in Chapel Hill, it's just like a trip down memory lane. Granted, when I was there, our time wasn't as successful as in years past, but it's fun. It's like I was there yesterday when I see him. So it's always have a lot of good laughs. He always shoots me a nice text message whenever I throw well or something like that. So I told him when I texted him the other day, it was a long time coming, that he was very much deserving of, that opportunity. And I think he was going to be great.
When you came to Carolina your freshman year, I think your ERA was somewhere in like the mid fours. And then your sophomore year, you kind of break out and your ERA sub 3, like a 2.7, somewhere in that range. What was the biggest change you made from freshman to sophomore year? Or was it kind of just growing up?
Well, he will ask me, not as much now, but like back then when it was closer to that time, they're like, so what's the difference? And I was like, well, let me tell you how hard it is to pitch in the ACC with one pitch. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I like to call it foolishly 1.5 pitches. It was, I had my fastball, and then it was a collection of maybe I had a curveball that day, maybe I had a slider, maybe I had a changeup, but it was like one pitch, and it was like if I wasn't really locating that well, like it was tough. So I went to the Cape that summer and learned, taught myself a slider cutter, what I call a cutter now. Unbeknownst to me, the grip that the kid showed me wasn't even the grip, so I just kind of made it up. But yeah, I came back with another pitch, another wrinkle for hitters to kind of have to respect. But yeah, no, that freshman year was like, yeah, that's a little bit tough. I think I'm gonna need another pitch to get some of these guys out. It's the competition's a little bit harder than high school. But yeah, no, it was just like you said, to maturity. It was like, all right, now I understand like what it's like, what they're asking of me, what I need to do. So I mean, it's like anything. Once you notice what you got going on, you can make small improvements.
So from 11th grade, you're getting like 3 schools contacting you when the window opens, and then you kind of develop into this national pitcher of the year at Carolina, to the point where you got drafted in the 3rd round. And the signing bonus for around that slot I saw is around like $500,000. Do you have any
Mhm.
memorable purchases after signing, or what kind of happened there?
Um, yeah, no, I'm very, I would say, frugal with my money. I like calculated, I guess you could say. Like I make sure, like, one, if I'm buying anything, like I'm a bargain hunter. So like clothes or anything like that, I hammer TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Like I'm all in on that.
Maybe get a
Uh,
sponsorship there?
I don't know, but like that's just what like people were, my mom's like if I disappear like when I'm at home, she'd be like, let me guess, you were like TJ Maxx or something, just like browsing the racks, seeing what they got there. No, I really didn't buy anything. I bought a car. That was that's a big purchase. But yeah, that was pretty much the only thing that I bought. I was driving like an '02 Nissan Maxima, so I was like, all right, I think I can upgrade a little bit. So I got a new car, and then I bought some shoes, like some Jordans or whatever, but nothing really, more than that.
Speaking of the MLB draft, when guys like Jordan Adams or Kyler Murray get drafted and they're debating between two sports, the cons for baseball always seems to be that the minor leagues and how it's not as like glamorous as you might think for a professional athlete. Do you have any stories from your times in the minors that shows, how much of a grind it really was?
Um, one story, no, not necessarily. Just the whole collection of the minor leagues is a grind. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, all right, you get paid to do what you love, but you're getting paid less than minimum wage. So it's like it's like one of those things. Like you really gotta love it. Like I like tip my hat to guys that like have to support a family, kids, have been doing it a while and haven't had a shot. And like, I mean, those guys are like unbelievable grinders. Like, so like for them to just keep at it, like I think that's like the coolest thing. But yeah, there's countless things that I could just think of. Taking a bus at 12 o'clock after the game, driving from, I think we played in Round Rock, which is like right outside Austin. We took like an 8-hour bus ride on like a regular coach bus. So like sleeping in the aisles, sleeping on the floor, whatever it is. And then when I had to play that night in New Orleans, like it's just not glamorous at all. Like it's tough. And then when you get to AAA, it's like I didn't mind it though. I don't mind flying, but when you get to AAA, most teams fly like for the most part because like the travels you can't bus, like it's way too long. But the flights are at like 4 in the morning. So it's like, yeah, you fly, you don't have to ride on the bus, but you're getting up at 1 in the morning to get to the airport and then you're on Southwest. Like it's just, yeah, it's such a grind. Like it's unbelievable. It really makes you like when you get to the big leagues, appreciate how much easier, I guess you could say in quotations, the travel is, on your body and stuff.
How did you find out you were being called up to the big leagues last year?
Speaking of a AAA flight, I was on a AAA flight. We were playing in Albuquerque, I think it was. We were leaving, and we had a layover in like Denver or something like that. So when we took off on the layover, I was just watching a movie. I forget what I was watching on Netflix, and the manager came up, and I thought he was going to comment about the movie that I was watching. So then he was like tapping me on the shoulder, and he was like, "Hey, when you get off this plane, you're going to be a big leaguer." And I was like, what? So I like took my headphones out. I was like, wait, so one more time? He's like, yeah, like you're going to the big leagues after you get off this plane. And I was like, oh, sick. But I had to sit there for like an hour and like my teammates, like they were kind of figuring out what was going on because like a couple guys heard around. And then like for like an hour and a half, I had to wait until I could tell my family. So by the time I got off the plane, got home, was like getting my stuff packed, it was probably like 4 in the morning, East Coast time. And I was just calling, be like, hey, yeah. And then everyone started finding out my family and they were calling me and like didn't get like an ounce of sleep that night. It was just like, but yeah, it was cool. Cause at the time, like I was throwing so well that I just was like, man, like you always want, I don't know. I just kind of dreamt it as being like a surprise. So I'm thinking like, all right, any day now, like I'm going to get called up and like, anytime I get called in the manager's office, like I have a feeling this is what it's going to be about. So for it to be there was kind of cool. It was a surprise. It caught me off guard and, it was awesome.
You made your major league debut for the Marlins last year in St. Louis. What was that moment like? Because the Cardinals were the team you originally started with.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes way back further than that. I grew up a Cardinals fan. I was a huge Mark McGwire fan when I was younger. I wore 25 until I got to high school. Well, actually, that's not true. But I wore 25 growing up, like until I had to switch the number, with another kid. But yeah, I was a huge Mark McGwire fan, a Cardinals fan. Got drafted by him, and like I said, like when I was younger, I had that quiet confidence. It's like I'm gonna play in the big leagues. I'm gonna play for the Cardinals. Like, and I'm like, all right, now I'm checking off these boxes. Like, I really have a shot to do it. So when I got drafted by him, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play in Busch Stadium one day. Like, that's my goal. I was wearing a different uniform, but yeah, it was cool. It was like, it was when I first got there, when I showed up, it was like one of those like, excuse my language, but it was like, oh, like this is like unbelievable. I couldn't, like, I just really couldn't. Yeah, it was indescribable. But yeah, just being a Cardinals fan, like growing up, it was surreal.
You mentioned having to call all your family, and you mentioned earlier that Coach Fox was at the game. How many people do you think you had in that stadium rooting for you that day?
Oh, I know that I left 20. I think I had 24 tickets or 25. I think I had 20. I think it was 25 tickets that I had left myself, and then probably an additional. I think Andrew Miller left Coach Fox, Coach Forbes, and Coach Jackson like a few tickets, so that didn't have to like, because once you get to the big leagues, you have to pay for the tickets. So
Yeah.
like usually your debut, they're like, yeah, you're playing for free today, kid. Like, so I left. Yeah, I think I left like 25 tickets, and
You
Andrew
made your
Miller,
major
thankfully,
league debut and it cost you money?
yeah, I think so. That it cost me money, and actually, when I played in DC, when we played the Nationals a couple weeks later, that actually cost me more money because I think I left 50. I think I left 50 tickets in DC, and I remember just like my mom being like, "Hey, we have all these people that that want to come see you because it's close, like 3 hours from home,
Yeah.
and I'm pitching." So I'm like, "Yeah, like just let me know how mmany people." And I'm thinking that it's not going to be that many, and then my mom gives me the final total, and it's like 51, and I'm like, I can't ask the guy for 51 tickets, like this is ridiculous. So then I was like, hey, listen, like is there any way I can get 51 tickets? He's like, yeah, I think they have extras, but don't ask for this many again, like you just can't do it. And I was like, yeah, I know, like I'm not doing this again. So yeah, I told my mom, I was like, listen, if you guys want to sit together again, just go on StubHub and buy, like, it's going to be cheaper than like you guys paying me back or whatever it is. I was just like, yeah, 51 tickets. It was ridiculous. And what sucks about that game was it got like, there was a rain delay. So I threw 2 innings and I sat too long and
That was it.
everyone left because I didn't go back out. Yeah. It was like just a disaster, but yeah, it was, that's the most tickets I ever left. It's crazy.
Going along with that family aspect, how close would you say the UNC players are in professional baseball? Because you did mention Andrew Miller before.
Yeah. The guys in pro ball, I would say fairly close, but at the same time, like I'm closer with a lot of guys who aren't in pro ball anymore. Just from, being back for like our alumni, like the first pitch dinner, stuff like that. Like guys that, had played and are retired now. The guys who are playing now, it's tough. You don't really necessarily see them just because of that's like the one event when a lot of alumni are back. So like it's right before spring training. So the guys that are still playing, it's tough for them necessarily to get there. And if they have to go to spring training in Arizona, stuff like that. So, there's a handful of guys that I've met though throughout, this time that are Carolina guys that I hadn't met on campus before. But yeah, just the whole alumni, group of the last 10 or 15 years, there's like a pretty good amount of guys that come back for that dinner. And, as an alumni, like it's one of the cooler things that like when it's your first year as alumni, you can go out with the guys that have played before you and hear some of the stories. So yeah, it's a pretty tight knit group, from my experiences at least.
Yeah, I saw Inside Carolina posted a graphic about a stat from you this season, and like the first comment was Matt Harvey saying, "Attaboy."
I didn't even see that. Where was that at?
It was on Inside Carolina's Instagram.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Yeah, no, Harvey probably doesn't even remember meeting me, but I've met Harvey a couple of times. Once when he was back filming that E60, The Dark Knight. I don't know if you saw that one. But yeah, he's been there a couple of times. But there's just guys like it's super cool. Like Andrew Miller, I met him for like a half a second when he came back the one fall. So like it's just cool that like you could be around those guys. Like that's one of like at least for me, like one of the driving factors of like trying to become successful is like you get there and my camera's falling down. But you get there and it's like these guys are up on the wall and these big leaguers and you're like, man, I want to be on the wall and like that for me. So like to see them come back and just be like, regular dudes is, is crazy.
I thought it was interesting hearing you say how you found out you got called up, but how did you find out you were traded from St. Louis to Miami and then later on from Miami to Arizona, because 2 trades in basically
Yeah.
less than 2 years now.
Yeah, that's what I joke around about. I'm like, how many people have been traded twice before they turn 23? And I don't know if I'm sure there probably are more, but like, yeah, twice. And then in a matter of like 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. The first one was St. Louis to Miami. That was in the off season. I ironically enough, with that story, I was down in Palm Beach at the Cardinals spring training like facility for like a winter workout kind of deal. And I was down there and there was rumors that guys were getting traded. And, there was kind of like, you kind of knew who the big piece was going to be, which was Sandy Alcantara. Like everyone's like, all right, Sandy's probably going to be the guy, but they're talking about, a couple other prospects going. And me just being like, okay, like not even paying attention, just be like, yeah, like they're trading somebody, not having any idea that I could be traded. I'm like, they just drafted me. Like, there's no way they're going to trade me. Like, no way. And I literally I touched down. I had a connector flight in Charlotte, turned my phone on. And as the wheels like hit the ground, my phone starts it's blowing up with text messages. I'm like,
Oh,
this is
no.
strange. So before I even checked, like I had a voicemail from my agent. He was like, hey, give me a call back. And I was like, oh man, I don't know what this is about. So I checked Twitter before I called anybody back, and my name was everywhere. It's Zac Gallen in this trade, and all these texts from these people. And at the time, people were like, hey, keep your head up. Like they thought I was disappointed. Like, which at the time, like I was like, dang, like I like really wanted to be like, go get to the big leagues, the Cardinals. And, but like the opportunity to play in Miami, it was like, it was a rebuilding franchise. They were going to give young guys a shot. Like it would just, it made a lot of sense. So I called everybody, people were like, what, really? Like crazy. So it's kind of ironic that they literally traded me as I was flying home from the spring training facility. So I was a little bitter about that because they, made a big stink about me coming down there for that. And then said I didn't have to be there, and then they traded me. So I was like a little fired up about that whole thing, but that's the story for a different day. But the Marlins one to the Diamondbacks was after I pitched, and oddly enough, my aunt's like, hey, like tomorrow's the trade deadline. Do you think anything's going to happen? And I was like, I don't know. I can't see that there. She's like, well, you never know. Like last time. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. But like, we'll see what happens. So I go to the field. I get there a little bit early because I pitched the night before. So I was going to get my work in. And I'm sitting there at my locker, like getting changed. And the pitching coach comes up to me. He's like, hey, let me talk to you for a second. So I'm thinking, all right, we're going to go over last night's outing, which what you usually do. Like after you pitch, like you go over and see the mistakes you made or the good pitches, whatever. They called me in the office. And I blacked out for like 2 minutes. I was like, damn, they're sending me down. Like I just threw well, like they're making a move. Somebody's coming off the DL. Like they're just the numbers are sending me down. So like the first 2 minutes of the conversation, I didn't even hear. I just was like thinking about how could they send me down? Like I'm just throwing so well. Like I was just like sitting. I was like, all right, I got to tune back in. I got to see what's going on in this conversation. And then so it goes on. We're talking about whatever. And the GM, the Don Mattingly's manager, he was talking, and then he was like, all right, I'm going to, hand it over to the GM and tell you like what's going on. He's like, so we made a move for you. We traded you. I'm like, okay, nice. Like, and they're telling me like, we felt like, this is a position we really needed to go and whatever. And I'm still sitting there. I'm like, okay, like to where? Like they never told me where I was getting traded to. So I'm sitting there like, great, you traded me, but like, where am I going? Like what? Like who do I contact? And it was kind of almost like they'll contact you type of deal. Like it wasn't like we have this set up. It was just like wait for them to contact you. So I'm like, all right. So the first person I called was like one of my agents. I was like, hey, I don't know if you heard, but I got traded. He's like, what? Really? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I don't know what to do. He's like, all right, well, sit tight. Like they're gonna probably call you in the next 20 minutes or whatever it is. So sure enough, they did, and we figured out all the travel stuff and whatnot. But yeah, it was. And so the funny part of the story was my buddy was in town for the week in Miami, and he's in my apartment, and this was his last day here, and he texted me. He said, I'm watching ESPN. Did you really just get traded while you were at the field? And I was like, apparently so. So he helped me pack up my apartment, which is like a huge, like, I was like, because I mean, I had a flight the next day in the next like 12 hours, whatever it
Yeah.
was. So I had to get everything packed up. But yeah, it was it was a whirlwind of a day, no doubt.
I'm trying to think how I would feel in those situations, and I'm wondering when you're traded, does it ever, like they always say, like sports is a business, but does it ever feel personal, like you now have something to prove against your old team, or are you just kind of too focused on that next team, that next opportunity?
Not really. I feel like I I watched Moneyball like when it came out at a young age and kind of understood that baseball is a business, so you really can't take things personal. But at the same time, I'd be lying as a competitor if I didn't say there was like a little bit of vengeance. Anytime that you can stick it to the team that got rid of you. It's a weird, yeah, it's a weird dynamic, especially to be traded twice because it's like, all right, the Marlins really wanted. Well, I don't know about really, but like they wanted you the first time, and then they didn't want you. So like it's like just an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just focused on, to me it really doesn't matter who it is. Um but yeah, there might be like a little list that I have that I'm just writing down names that are,
Just
but
when you guys get the full schedule back, maybe put a little asterisk next to those games. Hope
no,
you get.
not necessarily. It's like it's just like things in the back. It's like a bulletin board, like just motivational type of
Yeah,
things. They're
yeah.
like, all right, just remember they didn't want you. It's not like I'm gonna go out there and pitch against the Cardinals or the Marlins, like, and be all hyped up and
Yeah.
want to. It's just like, all right, just we need some motivation. Just remember, where you're at because of why you're there. You know what I mean?
Heading into this season, what was it like for you with the pandemic and with the negotiations between the MLB and the Players Association, where you didn't really know when and if you would even have a season at one point?
Yeah, it was interesting. I got like a little taste of what it's like to be retired. I imagine. Yeah, you really don't know, or we didn't know. It's my family would be like, "Do you know anything?" And after a while, it was like, "If I know something, I'm gonna tell you. Like, I'll let you know." I'm like, because a lot of this stuff I'm finding out in the media just like everyone else. So it was like one of those things. Where I'm like, I really have nothing more for you. Like they're negotiating behind closed doors. They're supposed to be, but stuff's getting leaked to the media. Whatever it is. But like, I really don't know anything more than what they're leading on to be. But yeah, it was interesting. There was points in time where you're like, all right, we're gonna play, we're gonna get this thing done, and then it's like, well, now I don't know what we're gonna do. Like I was like JB and I were actually thinking about going back to Carolina to like finish we both have a semester left, so it was like, all right, we can go back and finish if we could do it, and then we wound up thankfully getting the season starter because I don't know if I'm ready to go back to school just yet, but yeah, yeah, it was played a lot of golf and just played catch pretty much every day and was just trying to stay in shape as best as possible.
I was going to mention, I saw on Instagram you were getting a lot of golf rounds in. How would you describe your game?
um Not as good as I want it to be. That's I like I definitely made some major strides from where I was before quarantine, but not as good. Like like looking like I definitely like if I look back and did it on paper, like yeah, I definitely made some strides. But it felt like I got like a 0.5% better than when I started. So like for me, but that's just the game of golf. Like it's just
Yeah.
tough. It's just the way it's going to be. But yeah, I wish I was better than I am. So that's how I'll put it.
Since getting called up, what would you say the best perk of being in the MLB has been in case you need some time to think? Maybe you got into a really nice restaurant, met someone famous, or maybe you got onto an exclusive golf course. Do you have anything now that I filibustered a little?
I have a lot. I have I don't know about perk, but like experiences. Um, Definitely like some golf courses that I've gotten on or had the opportunity, just maybe not fulfill, like not been able to do it, but it's a thing that will be able to, be accomplished in the off season or whatever it is. That's definitely one of them. It's nice that the D-backs have some connections around here, some golf courses that hook us up. Um, let's see, the flying on like a chartered flight, like the big league flights is pretty cool. I never did that. That's nice. Um, I see for me, like I don't know if it's a cliche answer, but before this COVID outbreak, we were allowed to sit in the dugout and watch the games as opposed to like being in the stands or in the clubhouse. So for me, I just liked being able to like sit 100 feet away from a guy like Jacob deGrom or Clayton Kershaw and watch them pitch. Like, I thought that was just like a super cool experience, just somebody that loves pitching and just like, I'm like, yeah, that's sick. Like, deGrom's pitching tonight. I'm going to get to watch this guy. Like, you know what I mean? So, but the time that the Sports Illustrated swimsuit models were on the field at Miami, that also wasn't a terrible perk either. But, there's a bunch of things. But yeah, it's the countless perks or experiences, whatever you want to call them.
One new rule for this year has been the universal DH. So I have to ask, do you miss batting at all?
No. I miss taking batting practice before like the game, whatever, get your hitting fix in. But I don't miss having to get a bunt down in like a big situation.
Yeah.
Nor do I miss getting pinch hit for like in the 5th inning because we need to like get a hit or something like that.
Yeah.
However, I do miss facing the other pitcher as opposed to another hitter. But yeah, no, as a whole, I'm okay with the DH. Like, it is what it is. I'd rather just, maybe get an extra inning or two because my spot didn't come up in the lineup.
My follow-up question to that is, what's a worse feeling, pitching with runners in scoring position or when you're coming up to bat with hitters in scoring position?
There's less pressure when you're hitting because it's like you're not really supposed to get a hit. So it's like icing on the cake if you do get a hit and you get an RBI. Yeah, there's probably more pressure as a pitcher because it's like something that like you more likely than not cause the runners being in scoring, so it's your fault. And now it's like, all right, now it's your responsibility to minimize the damage as much as possible. If you strike out with runners in scoring positions, like, yeah, they don't pay me to hit. Like, so it's definitely easier on the mind having to hit with runners in scoring position.
Your last start against the Rockies, you set a National League record by allowing 3 or fewer runs in your first 19 starts. What's it like to think about that the league has been around since 1876 and nobody has been able to do what you've been able to do?
It's kind of crazy. I think they said that record stood since like 1973 or something like that. So it's like I don't know, what's that, 47 years, something like that, 46 years. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It also highlights how much baseball loves their tradition and their records. Like, there will be records for anything. But yeah, no, it's been cool. I kind of had an idea coming into this season that like I was like in second place, I think, and I needed like 3 more or 4 more to break the record, 3 to tie. And I was looking at the schedule and I'm like, man, that's 4 tough offenses and 1 really tough place to pitch. So I was like, all right, no pressure, but if you do it, you earned it. Like, some of those offenses were tough. But yeah, it's cool just to have a record. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's something that I never dreamed about, but it's also a testament to the guys behind me. Like, there's definitely times where I've made pitches that they've made plays that have saved runs and stuff like that. So it's not just just a me record, which is another thing that I love. It's like about preventing runs, which is a defensive team thing.
To a lot of baseball fans, it might feel like you're coming out of nowhere because since your MLB debut, you're 9th among starting pitchers with a 2.8 ERA. Have you been surprised at all by your start and the success you've been able to have so early in your career?
My answer would be yes and no. Yes, because you never know what's going to happen. A lot of those times those numbers are based on lucky breaks or whatever it might be. You might have an inning that kills your ERA just because of a bad break, a bad hop, whatever it may be. But at the same time, no, because I knew how much work that I put in, and I was talking about before, that quiet confidence. I always had that confidence in myself that I knew my stuff was good enough. I knew it was where I belonged. But yeah, my answer would be yes and no. Just for it to happen, it's kind of surreal, but at the same time, it's I knew that I was capable of it. So I'm glad that it's happening and people are taking notice.
My last question for you is, I was playing MLB The Show earlier today. You're an 82. What do we have to do to get that raised? Because I feel like you're approaching 90s right now.
82 is sick. I think I started at like a 76 is from what my friends had told me
Did
or
you not
something
just hear
like
my
that.
last stat? 2.8 ERA, ninth among
Yeah.
starting pitchers since you're MLB.
Okay, I'm not going to be
And
I mean, yeah,
82?
of course. Well, I don't know how they do I don't know how they do that. But for me, anything in the 80s was like sick. Like
You'll
I'm
take
cool with
that?
that. Like I'm down. Yeah, I mean, obviously you always want to be higher than you are, but I'm not going to sneeze at an 82 by any means. I mean, but yeah, no, I even thought when the rankings first came out and I was like a 76 or whatever it was, same thing. My friends were like, oh, you should be higher. I was like, you realize that I'm in MLB The Show with a 76. Like, I think that's cool in and of itself. So anything with an 8 in front of it, even better. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. It's just keep pitching well, and I guess the rankings go up.
I'll take the campaign up for myself on social media. Raise
But yeah,
Gallons overall.
that's fine.
Hashtag raise
I will
Gallons
not be
overall.
starting that. That can be all you. I will not be self campaigning for that.
All right, man. That's all I have for you today. But I just wanted to say thanks for hopping on here, talking with me, and just keep trusting the process over there.
Oh yeah, trust the process. Thanks, brother.